predicting the record of every Big Ten team.
College football is back, and we're back on the Big Mountain with a look at the Big Ten.
Hey, welcome back to the Big Mountain. I am JY, and this is my good friend Steve. Steve, you're going to break down all 18 teams in the Big Ten. Give us the exact record prediction or projection, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so we're going to get out of the gate here right away with some heaters.
Okay.
I'm like you said, I'm doing the exact record prediction for every single team. I'm going to talk about some key games that they need to win or navigate to get to that record, and then maybe just some key questions about the team.
Okay.
So starting with Illinois right out of the gate, I'm going with them to go 11-1 in the Big Ten. Overall, and their key games are they're going to play at Indiana. They're going to host USC. They're going to host Ohio State, and they are going to go at Washington later in the season. I'm expecting them to go 3-1 in those games. All the other games I'm chalking up wins. These are the 4 key games. I think they can go 3-1 in these games.
Wow.
And finish 11-1 and make it into the Big Ten championship game.
Wow, Illinois, you are coming out swinging.
Yes.
Illinois in the Big Ten championship game, but they're the 4 games that you want to circle on your calendars if you're an Illinois fan.
Absolutely. And I'll just say a few quick things about the team. Luke Altmaier, tons of experience coming back. I'm super, super high on him this year. They have really good wide receivers coming back, lots of experience, lots of snaps coming back, and just the Brett Bielema, his coaching style and the trend line that he has this team on. I think this is the year that they peak. They reach their highest kind of ceiling under this coach and in the Big Ten.
All right, well, let's get to Indiana now. They were huge.
Yes, yeah. So last year, I predicted for Indiana to go 9-3, actually. I was the only one probably in the country that had them that high.
Yeah.
Well, what did they do? They went 11-1, made the college football playoff, did even better than I thought they would.
I remember you saying you even wanted to have them higher than 9-3, but you didn't want to be too crazy about it. But you weren't overly surprised.
No,
maybe.
and I said I had them as kind of my 4th team because basically I had a couple teams being that 4th playoff team, and they made it.
Yep.
So this year I got them going 10-2. The really 4 key games for them to navigate is they at home against Illinois. We just talked about that.
Yep.
The 3 really hard games for them are at Iowa, at Oregon, and at Penn State. So that's why I have them 1 game behind Illinois. I think that schedule's a little tougher there.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's really tough. But I think they can go 2-2 over that. I think they'll win all the rest of their games, go to split those games 2-2. I have them going 10-2, and really basically either being in the CFP or being a contender, because I think we have a lot of teams in the Big Ten that could do really, really well this year. So for me, the key questions with them, can Curt Cignetti do it again?
Yeah.
Was he just a 1-year wonder? Did he catch lightning in a bottle? Everyone made it out that Indiana just got to the playoff because they had such an easy schedule.
Right.
The funny thing is when you look at the end of the season rankings, strength of schedule by ESPN, which we had all these ESPN talking heads saying they didn't deserve to be there.
Sure.
Their schedule rank was right around 30, and it was right in the middle of a whole bunch of SEC teams that people were arguing should have gotten in over them. So their schedule, last year, they played 3 of the last 4 CFP title game teams. It really was, yes, it was easier. I did talk about that at the beginning of the season, but it wasn't as easy as some teams made it out to be, or some people made it out to be that were fighting for other teams. This year, maybe a slightly tougher schedule.
Right.
Again, those games at Iowa, at Oregon, at Penn State. Could they lose all 3? Yeah, they could, and that would make them more of an 8 or 9 win team. But I think again they can go 2-2 in those 4 games, get to 10-2. I think Curt Cignetti can do it again. And honestly, you and I, we were both huge on Rourke last year.
Yeah.
He had a really great season. I think Fernando Mendoza, the transfer from Cal, can be even better than Rourke was last year. I love him in this offense. He's more dynamic. I think. Maybe more talented overall and has a ton of experience and has played at the Power 4 level.
Right.
I think he can be amazing this year. He's a guy like a dark horse Heisman guy, a guy who might become a household name.
Wow. Well, if they go 2-2, in that stretch, or not in that stretch, but in those four games,
Right.
They should be 10-2. I mean, you hit it, man. They could go 0-4. They're not going to be obviously 10-2, right? You have them at 2-2. If they go 0-4, they're 8-4.
8-4, which still wouldn't be
good.
terrible. I mean,
No.
it's for Indiana, yeah.
And that's a hard. I mean, there's 3 away games. That's
Really tough.
serious.
Yeah.
All right, who's next?
So next up is Iowa. So I have them going 8-4 this year.
Yeah.
Last year I had them 10-2. They kind of underachieved. They lost a couple games I didn't expect them to. They lost to Iowa State by 1 point at the end of the game after they had that game won.
Right.
And then they lost a stinker to Michigan State,
Right.
which was kind of crazy. So this year they have. I won't say it's an easy schedule. I won't say it's a hard schedule. I have more key games on there. I think I have 6 games on there because they have so many games that could go either way. So Iowa State at the beginning, they're going to travel to Iowa State. The Cyhawk game, you never know how that's going to go.
Yep.
They do. So they have Indiana at home, Penn State at home, Minnesota at home, Oregon at home. Now they do travel to USC and Nebraska, which is their 2 hardest games in the Big Ten. But I have them going 8-4. I wouldn't be surprised. They could be that team that goes 10-2, but this is a lot of hard games.
That's a lot.
Even though they have a lot of them at home.
Yeah.
I have them going 3 like 3-3, 3-4 in that range.
Yeah.
Going 8-4. Could they do a little bit better? Yes, I think they could. The big thing with them is their offense improved.
Yeah.
They're bringing in a 2-time national championship quarterback from South Dakota State. I think he could be really, really good this year. And if he pans out the way I think he could, and they do a little better than I'm expecting, I think they could be another CFP dark horse. They could be that 3rd or 4th CFP team out of the Big Ten.
Wow. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
But, that's why Steve's the Big Ten guy.
Technically, as you see my prediction, right now they're not in a CFP.
No, I got
but if they just overachieve a little bit, that dude, if he can, really sling it, then they could easily be in the CFP.
All right, well, we've talked about 3 pretty darn good teams.
Yeah.
That's going to come to an end soon, maybe next.
Yes. Okay. So this is a Maryland team I've been down on all year. Are all off season basically.
Yeah.
I have them going 3-9 this year, and for me, the key games are going to be totally different. The other teams we looked at was they need to win these to get their final record, maybe if they make the playoffs or not. For me, the key game is to see, do they get a win in the Big Ten?
Yes.
And that's at Wisconsin, at Rutgers. Those are their best chances to get a win in the Big Ten.
Wow.
They lost so much talent. I think they're going to really struggle this year. And after that, when you ask the question of, can they get a win in the Big Ten? My only other question after that is, will Mike Locksley be on the hot seat? His record as a head coach has been abysmal, but what are the expectations of Maryland?
Right.
Really, as a fan base, are they even a football school? Are they investing? They got a few years back, they got a bunch of investment from Under Armour, and they had a little bit of a payoff when they had Talia there.
Right.
They had a couple good seasons, but now I just don't see much happening for them, and I just wonder, is Mike Locksley last another year, or do they turn to another direction?
Okay, well, man, if you have to find your own, maybe only Big Ten win at Rutgers and at Wisconsin, I don't know what time of year that's going to be, but that's
As you can see, the record prediction, I have them 3-9.
Yes, I understand. I understand. Well, let's get to the 2 Michigan teams. Who are you going with first?
Yeah, so Michigan Wolverines here first. I have a down year for them. Just like last year, I predicted that when everyone was saying they're still one of the top 2 teams in the Big Ten, I was like, no, they're going to take a step back. They did.
Yep.
I think they take another step back this year. I have them going 7-5. They have a tough schedule. This is another one. I have 6 games highlighted here, okay? At Oklahoma, at Nebraska, at USC, home against Washington, a Washington team that I think is going to be really, really good this year, at Michigan State, and then home against Ohio State. Now, they have been in Ohio State's brain in their mind the last couple of years. But honestly, I have them losing 5 out of 6 of these games. Only win. I'm thinking they would get a win maybe at Michigan State or at Nebraska or something there. But this is a tough road. I think they're going to start out with a loss at Oklahoma. I think at Nebraska, at USC are really tough. And even those home games, man. Washington, who I think is going to be improved. Yep. And you got to think Ohio State, who's completely loaded again this year, how badly do they want to get revenge on Michigan and go in there and just stomp them? So the big questions I have for them, who's going to be the quarterback.
Yep.
Mikey Keene, who we talked a lot about, our Mountain West fans know a lot about him, or Bryce Underwood, the $8 million freshman that comes in. I think Mikey Keene probably starts the year, and then at some point they find a good place to turn the reins over to Underwood.
Okay.
We'll see how it goes. And then how many games does Moore coach this year? Does he get suspended before the season even starts? We'll see. Again, I think Michigan's going to be on tilt this year and just have another bad year. I'm going with 7-5 as my exact record prediction for the Michigan Wolverines.
Wow. Well, most people would say 7-5 isn't that bad, but Big Blue ain't going to like that.
No,
that's for
not
darn
at all.
sure. All right, let's go to the state of Michigan, Michigan State. Where you got them at?
Yeah, Michigan State playing in East Lansing. I got them as just kind of a solid 7-5 team this year.
Yep.
Again, 6 kind of hard games here.
Yep.
At USC, at Nebraska, at Indiana, home against Michigan, at Minnesota, at Iowa. That's a really tough 6-game. It's not a stretch. They're not in order, but those are really hard 6 games. And I have them probably going 1-5 in those games, unfortunately. Just because, that's 5 pretty hard road games.
Right.
And then a home against Michigan.
Right.
So I think they can, win one of those games. Asking them to do much more than win one of those 6 games, I think, is a little tough.
Wow.
But for me, the question is Aiden Childs ready for the next step? Okay.
Sure.
This is his 2nd year as a starter. He's still young. If they were to go a 7-5 or an 8-4, if they win 2 of those games, could have a respectable season, especially if he can take the next step and show some progress, show some excitement for the fans, and that'll give us an idea how far along is this rebuild.
Yeah.
Jonathan Smith came in, brought some transfer players. Last year they took their lumps. They upset Iowa last year. They got a couple wins, but they also, Aiden Childs showed some promise, and he showed some not so good judgment when he was throwing the ball to the other team. Quite a few times.
Yeah.
So can he take that next step? How far along the rebuild? And I have them predicted as a 7-5 team this year.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I wouldn't put it past them to get 2 wins out of that group, and that's 8-4. And I don't know if I'm a Michigan State fan, I know you have high expectations. 12-0.
Yeah.
So even 7-5 is good, but 8-4, I think it's possible.
I think they would take it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the Golden Gopher.
Yeah, so Minnesota Golden Gophers. This was a team I was kind of down on last year, just mostly because of a lack of talent. They lost a bunch of talent.
Yeah.
But they overachieved last year. I think they could do it again this year, and honestly, they have a little bit easier schedule this year. So some of their key games, they start at Cal early in the season. They have home against Nebraska, at Iowa. They have a couple other tough games, but for me, those are like the real key games to figure out where they end up with their peers.
Right.
I have them going 9-3. I think they're going to be a really good Big Ten team this year. Do they get into the playoff? I think they're probably on the outside looking in. To me, they're like Iowa or Illinois was last year.
Gotcha.
You get to the end of the season, you're like, oh wow, 9-3, they did pretty good, but no one's really going to talk about them for the playoff in my mind.
Right. Yeah.
Now, I will say, quarterback position, Drake Lindsey. I think he's a redshirt sophomore or maybe a true sophomore. He got some playing time last year. Really good young quarterback. It sounds like he's had a really good summer camp so far, fall camp. I think he could do some big things. That was my biggest, over the offseason, my biggest question is, what were they going to do about the quarterback position? And honestly, I think they found their quarterback. We'll see how good he does this year. I think they've definitely found their quarterback of the future.
Wow.
I like this guy a lot.
Wow.
They could have the best O-line in the Big Ten, I think, between them and probably Penn State.
Wow.
But the question for me with a young quarterback, can they get their running game to be dominant again?
Sure.
If they can play good defense, have a dominant running game, and just bring this young quarterback along, I think they could be really successful this year. And again, I have Minnesota Golden Gophers under PJ Fleck going 9-3 in the Big Ten for 2025.
That's a heck of a standing there. Prediction there, 9-3. That's fantastic for the Golden Gophers. I wouldn't think they would ask for much more from you. Yeah. The prognosticator of the Big Ten. Let's go to Big Red.
Yeah, go Big Red, Nebraska. Again, this is one of those teams, and I'm going to highlight 6 games as their key games because they have such a spread of games. I have them going 9-3 because basically out of these 6 games, I have them going 50-50.
Yeah.
Could it go the other way? Yeah. One way or the other? Yes. So let's talk about this schedule. Home against Michigan early in the season.
Okay.
They go at Minnesota, which I think could be difficult. Home against USC. At UCLA. I think they're a better team than UCLA, but again, another, going to the West Coast, whatever. At Penn State, which obviously is going to be difficult, and then home against Iowa. Out of those 6 games, I think they can go 50-50 and then go 500, go 3-3, and get their record to 9-3. And again, could it go one way or the other? Absolutely, but I think they can get 3 wins out of those 6 games. And for me, the really big question is Dylan Raiola, uber talented, looked really good at times last year. But also, once defensive coordinators figure out how to get in his head, he had some rough moments as he was a growing young quarterback.
Yep.
Is he ready to take that next step?
Yep.
Like, by the end of the season, are we talking about this dude as like the Heisman favorite for the following year kind of thing? And honestly, I think Nebraska is going to take the next step record-wise, but are they ready as a program to take the next step to compete for a CFP spot? I think they're going to have a better record and be good in the Big Ten, but are they going to be like an 8-4 team or like a 9-10 win team that could compete for a CFP spot? To me, that's the big question about Nebraska this year.
Okay. All right. Well, man, you are hitting a lot of hot teams. Maybe it's time to get back to one not so hot team.
Yeah. Northwestern here. We did our over and under, and their over under was 3.5, and I picked the under there, because I have them going 3-9 this year. They have some tough games that they're just not going to win at all, and I didn't put those on there. But some of their key games where, like, if they want to try and get 2, 3, 4 wins and maybe hit that over at Tulane early in the season, that's not an easy out-of-conference game. I think Tulane will probably be the favorites.
I would assume so.
So then that leaves, what are their chances to get some wins? Western Illinois, ULM, I think it's University of Louisiana, Monroe. Yep. And Purdue, home against Purdue. Those last 3 games are home. So if they lose that game at Tulane, those are their 3 chances, I think, to get wins. And so the key question is, will they even win a Big Ten game this year?
Yeah.
I think Purdue's their best shot.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we're going to talk about Purdue later. It might be each other's best shot at a Big Ten win.
Yeah.
And then David Braun, is he going to be on the hot seat? 2 years ago, he was the coach of the year.
Right.
Was amazing, overachieved. They had a rough season last season. I think it's going to be another rough season this year. And I don't think it's his fault. Like,
sure.
He probably set expectations too high by having such a good year a couple years back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're building this new stadium. This will be the last year in the makeshift stadium. Next year they'll be in the new stadium.
Yeah.
If they have another tough year, do they get rid of David Braun so they can kind of move on to a new era, moving into the new stadium? I think that would be a shame. I would feel bad for the guy.
Sure.
But you got to be able to produce some wins.
Right. Understood. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that Tulane game could be very difficult for Northwestern. That is a very good Tulane team that I picked to win their conference.
Me too.
All right, so let's go to one of the big boys on the block. Yeah. Are they going to stay up there?
So Ohio State, again, super loaded team. Like you said, one of the big boys in the Big Ten every single year. They've got a tough schedule this year.
Yeah.
And it's in a year where do they rebuild or do they reload?
Right.
I think they're reloading, but it might still be a tough season just because of how hard their schedule is. They have a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator. They're going to have a new quarterback, replacing a lot on the offensive and defensive line. They're totally loaded across the board.
Yeah.
But they start with a home game against Texas. At least it's at home. It's in the shoe. But there's some other tough games at Washington, going out to Seattle. I think Washington is going to give them fits. At Illinois, this is probably the best Illinois team that they're going to face, most experienced team, in a decade or more that they're going to face. And this might be the year that Illinois catches them. They do get Penn State at home, which is good. Last year they went on the road, won a close game at Penn State. They get Penn State at home, but then they're at Michigan, and Michigan has had their number these last few years. So out of those 5 games, I think just because of the changeover, the turnover, personnel, coaches, everything, I have them losing 3 of those, going 9-3. But honestly, a 9-3 Ohio State team, especially, let's say they were to trip up against Texas,
Right.
Washington, and Illinois.
Yeah.
Then they get a win at home against Penn State.
Sure.
Beat Michigan on the road to go 9-3. A 9-3 Ohio State team could still get to the playoff.
Oh, for sure.
So, and not a total disaster for them. I think they just have some hiccups this year because of it. So I'm picking Ohio State to go 9-3. My biggest question for them, Julian Sand, is he the starter? I think he is. They've been trying to make this whole thing about a camp battle, whatever. I think he'll be the starter.
Yeah.
But is he ready to take this team right away to compete for a CFP spot, or does he need some time?
Yeah.
And then really, can they finally beat Michigan?
Right.
Because honestly, if they had a down season and didn't make the playoff, but they beat Michigan, I think Ohio, coming off a national championship, I think Ohio State fans will be like, okay, screw it, we beat Michigan. So, but if they were to struggle and lose to Michigan another year,
no. Can't do that. Well, 9-3, I would have that as the bottom for them. You know me, I'm a little more bullish on them. But
sure,
10-2 or 11-1 is probably where I'm at a little bit. But all right, let's go back out to Oregon, and we're going to the returning champion from last year.
Yeah, Oregon came into the Big Ten last year and ran through the Big Ten undefeated. Won the Big Ten championship game. Got spanked a little bit in the playoff, but during the regular season, when it counted to win a championship in the Big Ten, they got it done. They were awesome last year.
Yeah.
I have them taking a step back, similar to Ohio State. It's just a lot of turnover. They lost their top wide receivers. They lost Dylan Gabriel, who was amazing at quarterback. They've benefited for some really amazing, experienced quarterback play the last few seasons.
Yep.
Dylan Gabriel and Bo Nix. So let's talk about some key games. To begin the season, early in the season, they have Oregon State at home. Not a pushover game. It's a rivalry game. It's early in the season. With a young quarterback, Dante Moore. I mean, he was really looked at kind of a bust at UCLA. Is he ready to step in and lead this team? So that could be a trap game for them. And then September 27th, they travel to Penn State, going all the way across the country. We heard the coaches last year talk about how difficult it was coming from the West Coast all the way across the country.
Right.
So they're going to travel, play the whiteout at Penn State. Then they have Indiana at home. I think that could be a tough game. I think Indiana is going to be improved. Then they got to turn around. They're going to at Iowa. I think that could be tough.
Yep.
USC we're going to talk about them later. They're going to be an improved team this year. So they do get USC at home. But then they end the season at Washington, which, again, another team. We're going to talk about them later. I have Washington. I'm very high on Washington this year.
Yes.
So those 6 games, I think they probably I have them losing 4 of those games.
Right.
I just think there's so many landmines there with them rebuilding. I think they're going to have just a temporary step back this year before they just maybe go gangbusters the next few years in the Big Ten.
Okay.
But the big question is Dante Moore.
Yeah.
Can that guy come in and play anything like Dylan Gabriel or Bo Nix did? If not, I mean, those guys were the reason their offense went.
Yeah.
If he's a bust this year, they're going to be looking at I know they have like a 5-star freshman, they have some other young quarterbacks, but they need this guy to actually do something. And then who's going to be their go-to receiver?
Right.
Their top 2 receivers last year left, graduated, went to the NFL, whatever. Their top guy this year that was coming back this year, injured, out for the year. So you got a young, inexperienced quarterback who's really struggled. Who's he going to have to throw the ball to?
Yep.
I think that's a big question, especially early in the season. Those 3 games: Oregon State, Penn State, Indiana, early. I think they could struggle to figure out their offensive identity. So I have Oregon this year taking a step back and going 8-4.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of faith in Moore either. And yeah, he's definitely not the guy that the last 2 quarterbacks were. So I understand your trepidation with this
I like
team.
that word.
And specifically the offense. I got some big ones every so often. I repeat myself a lot, but that was a new one. All right, your Penn State Nittany Lions. Everybody knows you're a Penn State guy, but
Absolutely.
You take your homerisms out for this.
Yeah. So everybody knows I'm a Penn State fan. I like you've mentioned before. I try and take that homerism out of it.
Right.
Last year, I predicted them to go 11-1 and lose to Ohio State again, which is exactly what happened. I think last year Ohio State was a little bit better team than them.
Yeah.
I said maybe they could beat them, but I didn't think last year was the year. And that's pretty much how it went. Still a good season for them last year. Now, But I'm going to continue with a theme that I've talked about over and over again with these Big Ten teams. You'll see recurring themes. The teams I'm high on have a lot of experience coming back, experienced quarterbacks, stable coaching situations, experienced offensive linemen, skill positions, all of that. Those are the teams I'm high on. And the teams that maybe had a lot of turnover or are starting a new quarterback or whatever, I'm a little down on them this year. So for that reason, Penn State, like a lot of people nationally, I'm very high on Penn State. I am predicting them this year to finally kind of get over that hump. And I know a lot of people will not believe that they will get over the hump and beat Ohio State until they do. Although they did in 2016 under James Franklin. Nobody really saw that coming. It was, one time in 10 years. So we'll see if they can do it again. But I have them going 12-0, beating Ohio State. And going to the Big Ten championship game, where I think they will face Illinois, a team that we already talked about earlier.
That.
Yeah,
Yes.
And now
I forgot already.
Yeah. So their key games are September 27th. They're going to host Oregon in the Whiteout, and then later on in the season they're going to travel at Iowa. They're going to go to Ohio State, to Columbus, into the shoe, and they're going to do their own blackout of that game. And then they have Indiana at home. Honestly, these are their only 4 hard games this year. The Penn State, they have an easy record.
Okay.
Their out of conference schedule is pretty easy. I think they have one of the easier schedules of any of the Big Ten heavyweights this year.
Okay.
So you combine that experience coming back, the talent coming back, all of that stuff with what I think is an easier schedule than a lot of their peers. I have them going 12-0. I think that they finally beat Ohio State. I think they can take care of it. I think Oregon game will actually not be as close as many people are hoping or predicting.
Okay.
That Iowa game on the road, that's always tough for Penn State.
Yeah.
And even I think Indiana, we get towards the end of the season hosting Indiana. Indiana could be fighting for their playoff life.
Right.
Where Penn State maybe at that point might already have a playoff spot or maybe even a spot in the Big Ten championship game sewn up.
Yep.
And Indiana has to win that game to get into the CFP. So that could be a tricky game for them. And for me, the key questions, first of all, is this the best team under James Franklin era? I think those teams, 2016, 2017, 18, all were really good teams, really talented. They did beat Ohio State one time and then lost to them by 1 point the other 2 years.
Yeah.
Those were good teams. But I think this is the best team that James Franklin has had from experience and talent-wise. But, the big thing, that narrative is out there. James Franklin, can he win the big game? That's a narrative that he has to overcome.
Yep.
Will he do that this year? And are they ready to take that next step? Last year, they got all the way to the CFP semifinal. They were one field goal away from playing for a national championship. And really, this is the year. Can they go the next step? For me, it's almost national championship or bust for Penn State.
Okay.
Because if they have another game like last year, they get to the semifinal, especially if they were to have a stumble against an Ohio State or an Oregon, whatever.
Right.
I think people would just look at it as just another Penn State season.
Right.
They did good, but they lost a couple key games. So for me are they ready to just take that next step? And really, they almost have to go undefeated and then win a national championship to change that James Franklin big game narrative.
Okay. Well, Ovechkin did it once,
There you go.
and that is a big prediction. They're 12-0, and the goal of becoming the national champion. All right.
And isn't it amazing? We'll talk hockey here for 30 seconds. How did that narrative change with Alexander Ovechkin?
That day.
Exactly.
Yep.
And no one ever questioned it again.
Yep.
You're right. It was not can he win one? It's how many more will he win?
Yes, right.
Whatever.
Narrative went the complete opposite.
Yep.
Yep. All right, well, let's go. We're going from maybe the best to the worst, or one of. Where are we going here?
Yeah, Purdue. I think they're gonna have a struggle here. I love they brought in Coach Odom from UNLV. I like him as a coach. I like him building that program back up. But I have them going 2-10 this year. It's going to be a struggle. The key games for me to just get a couple wins and maybe get a Big Ten win at Northwestern and home against Rutgers. Those are their chances. They've got a couple easier out of conference games, but to get a win in the Big Ten, I think those are their best 2 chances.
Okay.
And then the real question for me, I don't really care what the record is this year, but can they show any steps of progress? Give the fans some hope so that we can kind of get an understanding of how long this rebuild is going to take.
Gotcha. Okay. Some things to learn here this year with Purdue and where they're maybe at. So let's go to the Scarlet Knights and Rutgers.
Yeah, so last year, Rutgers was a team where I identified I thought they were going to be heavily improved.
Yep.
They had an easier schedule.
Yep.
Their over under last year on wins was 6.5, and I locked them. They win it. Well, they finally at the end of the season got to that 7 wins. They got her. They got her done. Greg Schiano, I think, is a very good coach and is a guy who's won here before. I think he has this program basically at the highest level it can get to. But I have them taking a step back record-wise this year, mostly just because last year they had like maybe one of the easiest schedules in the Big Ten. This year, a tougher schedule. So on the key games here, I have 4 games listed. I have some other games that are not listed. They're just going to be losses. They're playing really good. To me, these are the 4 games that determine can they get to 6-6 and get to a bowl, or are they going to be below that? So those games for me are at Minnie, at Washington, at Purdue, and home against Maryland. And basically, in order to have a winning season and get to a bowl, they have to go 3-1 in this. And I don't see them being able to do that, unfortunately. I have them going 2-2 and finishing 5-7, mostly just because a tougher schedule than last year. And then, their offensive style this year, they lost Monungai. They were run. This year, I'm high on Kaliak Manis. We did a over under preview, I think, and we did a quarterback preview. Yes, you were surprised at how high I was at Kaliak Manis.
Yes.
But I don't know if you've seen on Twitter, there's been a whole bunch of stuff kind of supporting that. They're returning production on him and all of that stuff. So I think he could have a good season for them. But are they really about to switch from a power run team they were with Monungai to more of a spread offense? I don't think so, and I think they're gonna take their lumps this year. One thing is last year they had a ton of injuries, offensive line, defensive line. I mean, they were like playing with third string on both of those lines at points in the season last year. If they could stay healthier this year, that's one thing that could get them to 6 wins. But I think it's going to be tough with this schedule, and I have them coming up just short. And I have Rutgers going 5-7 on the season.
Similar team, harder schedule. They go down a notch just because of that, apparently. So I totally understand that, especially with these schedules here in the Big Ten. You've got 18 teams, and so you're playing almost 50% of the conference, and that's it. Let's go to UCLA.
Yeah, so this was a team, they overachieved a bit last year. They did some good things, but the problem is they have a pretty tough schedule this year, and I think maybe they could be slightly better as a team, but still have a tough record. Maybe come up with a losing record. So I have UCLA going 5-7 this year. And when we go through their schedule, I think you'll understand. They have a couple tough games I think they're just going to lose. But these games right here, these kind of middle 6 games are is going to determine do they have a winning season or not. So they start at home early in the season. They got Utah at home. We don't know what to expect out of Utah. They've traditionally been one of the better teams in the Pac before, and now in the Big 12. But we're not exactly sure. That could be a loss for them, depending on how that goes. And then they go to UNLV. So this out-of-conference schedule could be tricky. They go to Vegas. It's early in the season. Dan Mullen, who knows what he's going to come up with. They got 2 quarterbacks right there. Can he come up with Alex Orji, a package there that they give them a lot of trouble that they're not prepared for? Dan Mullen has shown before that, give him a running quarterback and he can really put some pressure on the defense. New Mexico at home, that's just kind of they should win that game.
Yes.
So
I think so.
Yeah, exactly. Northwestern, I think they should win that game. Home against Maryland and at Michigan State. Again, there's going to be games that they're just going to lose. To me, these are the middle 6 games. If they can have a winning record in these games, then I think they can get to a winning record overall. They almost need to sweep these games to have a winning record overall. But if they go like a 4-2, and I think they end up 5-7 on the season. And so for me, the key questions for UCLA into 2025 is, are they still in rebuild mode? Are they ready to take the next step? And where are they getting the wins from? Because they have some tough games. They're just not going to win. How many of these 6 games can they win? Can they win enough to get over the hump and get to a bowl this year?
Okay, well, let's stay right there in LA and go to USC.
Yeah, so this is a team, I have them predicted to take a big step forward this year. I'm going with USC to finish 9-3 and compete for a CFP spot.
Wow.
They have an interesting schedule. I won't say it's difficult, but it's doable. Okay, so I have 6 games highlighted here that I have them going 3-3 in these 6 games.
Okay.
So at Illinois, home against Michigan. I think they're a better team than Michigan this year, and they're at home. At Notre Dame, I don't know exactly what to expect from Notre Dame this year. They lost to Notre Dame in a very close game last year. Notre Dame team that was really, really good. We'll see what Notre Dame is this year. But at Notre Dame, at Nebraska, home against Iowa, and then at Oregon. I think they're going to be a better team than Oregon this year.
Okay.
And I think they're better than Michigan. So those are 2 wins for me.
Okay.
But they need to find another win somewhere else in here. And if they do, that has them going 9-3.
Okay.
Which would put them, in competition for a CFP spot. We'll see. And the big questions for me, I really like Jaden Maeva coming back. Can Lincoln Riley work his magic with him? I think the raw materials there are really, really good. A really talented guy, has got some experience. Lincoln Riley has a track record with quarterbacks. Yeah. Can he do that with Jaden Maeva this year? I think he can. I think Jaden Maeva is going to become a household name by the end of the year. Will that be enough to get them into the playoff this year? I don't know.
Okay.
A lot of that's going to depend on the defense.
Okay.
Are they finally good? They took some steps last year forward. They did also then have some injuries that kind of limited them.
Yep.
Can they stay? I think they have more talent this year. Can they? If their defense can take the next step, then I think they can. With the combination of, I think they'll get good play out of Jaden Maeva, and if their defense is good, they can compete for a CFP spot. If their defense is not good, then they're probably going to come up with a couple games short of this, have an 8-4, 7-5, which is just going to say for a lot of people that's just another Lincoln Riley year. He has a good quarterback, but his defense is crap, and they lose the games that they need to. But I think they will take that next step. And I have them going 9-3 this year and competing for a CFP spot.
All right. Well, I'm in that group of some people will say that about him, because I do say that about him. All right. Maybe your biggest sleeper of the bunch. Yes. Maybe here we got Washington's. Why do we like this team, Steve?
Washington Huskies. Coach Jed Fish last year had them overachieving. They were one of the most dangerous teams in the Big Ten, even though they didn't have the talent as the top programs. Right. They just didn't. But they were a very overachieving team last year. They brought in quarterback Damon Williams at the end of the season. He got to play in the bowl game. This dude is legit, in my opinion. I think he's going to give some teams major fits this year.
Okay.
Really dynamic player, really good quarterback, athletic. He can just beat you in so many ways.
Okay.
I really, really like him. And I like this team. I mean, what Jed Fish has done and rebuilt this team already.
Right.
Now going into a second year, and now you get a dynamic athlete to run the offense. So let's talk about some key games. Kind of similar to what I had with USC.
Okay.
I have 6 games here, and I have them going 3-3 in these toughest 6 games and finishing 9-3. So at Washington State, I think last year they lost a close game to Washington State in the Apple Cup. I think they're significantly better than Washington State this year.
Agreed.
I think they win that game. They have Ohio State at home. This one is really this one could put them on the map. It's early in the season. Ohio State's they're breaking a new quarterback who has no experience, new coordinators. They go all the way across the country, go to Seattle, one of the toughest places to play. I'm not going to chalk this up as a win. Right. But what I'm saying is Ohio State better be on upset alert.
Right.
They travel to Michigan. I think they can beat Michigan. I think they're a better team than Michigan this year. They have Illinois at home, which I think benefits them because Illinois is going to be a good team. At UCLA, I think they're a better team than UCLA. I think they'll beat them. And then to end the season, they have Oregon at home.
Wow.
Again, some of the 2 of the better programs in the Big Ten, Ohio State and Oregon, both of them breaking in new quarterbacks. Washington gets them at home. Husky Stadium, really hard place to play. So I have them going 3-3 in these 6 games.
Okay.
And going 9-3.
Wow.
And competing again, being one of the teams is going to compete for that 3rd or 4th Big Ten CFP spot. And for me, the big questions are Damon Williams. Is he the real deal?
Right.
I think he is.
Right.
And they got teams on upset alert. They really do this year. How many of those teams can they pick off between Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon? Do they just get one?
Right.
Could they get 2 out of those 3?
Yeah.
That would be huge for them. as far as making them, which is my next question, are they a CFP contender or pretender? And honestly, I think those 3 games, that Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon, if they get 2 out of those 3, they are going to be in the CFP this year.
Well, you have them 3-3. I think that's very realistic, and maybe 4-2 there, especially with the way they get some of those teams at home versus away. I'm with you on the Washington State versus Washington. I think significantly 2 different teams going in opposite directions. And where you're saying Michigan's going to be at, I know they have to go into Michigan there, but they're used to going up and down the sea coast there with the Pacific with UCLA, so that's nothing real big for those 2 teams. So I like what you got there with them. I know why you have them as a little bit of a sleeper and a CFP contender possibly going into the end of the season. All right, well, let's go to our last team here. Wisconsin kind of ending down a little bit.
Yeah, Wisconsin, again, I mean, it's a recurring theme that we've talked about over the offseason. I like Coach Luke Fickell.
Yeah.
I liked the hire when they made it. I think he's a really good guy and a decent person and just a good football coach. But for whatever reason, his tenure just has not worked out at Wisconsin.
Yep.
I think there's a possibility the team could be better this year than it was last year, but have even a worse record because of the way their schedule lays out.
Okay.
So let's look at their schedule. So the big games on their schedule, they're going to, out of the gate, they're going to Alabama. Loss, in my opinion. They do catch Maryland at home. I think that's an opportunity for them to get a win.
Yep.
Then they at Michigan, home against Iowa, home against Illinois, at Minnie. They got a couple easy non-conference.
I was going to say, because if you're telling me they have to win 3 others games, I was going to say, yikes.
I have them winning only one of these games and getting to 3-9.
Okay.
Which I think it's going to be tough to even win one of these games.
Sure.
Honestly, so that's my key question. Do they even win a Big Ten game this year? And does Luke Fickell get another year? I know we saw some of our dwellers were kind of saying, and people on Twitter were saying that Luke Fickell doesn't last the year.
Right.
I'm going to stick to my guns, saying that I think he will last the whole year, but we will know by the end of the season that he's not coming back. I think they will treat him with respect that he has earned, and that's just kind of the way Wisconsin does things. But this will be his last year at Camp Randall in Madison. Unfortunately, again, for a guy, I think he's a good and decent human. I think he's a good football coach. Just has not worked out for Wisconsin. And this is make or break year, and they have a ridiculous schedule that is going to be pretty tough. So
okay. Well, I want you to give everyone just a reminder. We've said it, but remind everyone where you believe the conference championship game, or who's going to be in the conference championship game. And then I have a question for you on head coaches and the hot seat. So let's go to the championship first.
Yeah, I have Penn State and Illinois being in the championship, both winning. I have Illinois going 11-1. They could go 12-0. We'll see as well. But I have them going 11-1. I have Penn State going 12-0, getting over the hump. Both meeting in Indianapolis in the championship game. And I have Penn State winning the Big Ten championship this year. But Illinois, man, to me, in a year where I think Michigan, Oregon, and Ohio State take steps back, which are the big programs.
Right.
I think that opens the door for Illinois, Indiana, and Washington, and maybe an Iowa team. We'll see.
Okay.
That's where I'm at.
So I'd like to ask you real quick about hot seats. You're correct. You just gave your thoughts on Fickell, that you think he's going to be out. So I'll leave him out. You think he's 100% on the hot seat and he's going to be getting off of it. But let's go through a couple others that you mentioned.
Yep.
If you think this really could probably be their last year, they're on a super hot seat.
Yep.
Loxley, Moore, and Braun. Let's talk about if you think any one of those 3 is on the hottest seat. Who of those 3 do you think is on the hottest seat?
So Moore, I'm going to just take out because it's such a unique situation. That's more about suspensions and NCAA stuff and all of that. So between who were
Loxley and Braun.
Loxley and Braun. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to probably say Loxley just because he's been so much worse overall. And I think they're going to just have another bad year. I think Braun got enough credit. I think it's harder to win at Northwestern than it is Maryland.
Yeah.
And Braun had that one good season.
Sure.
The thing that worries me with Braun, I think he would definitely get another season no matter what goes on. The thing that worries me is they're moving into that new stadium.
Right.
And they might want to just like make a change, sell tickets, all that kind of stuff. Like, hey, but I think Loxley, I think Maryland is just going to have such a bad year. And I think finally the fans at Maryland are going to be like, this guy he's selling us a bill of goods that he's never going to be able to deliver.
Okay.
And I think Maryland has more potential. If they get they just hired another thing. Maryland just hired new AD.
Right. Right.
So they have more potential. They have some possible investment there. Like I can see them thinking, hey, if we can bring in the really good coach, we could be successful. Whereas Northwestern, I mean, Pat Fitzgerald was there so long.
Right.
It's so much harder to win there. I think Braun probably gets another year or two.
Okay.
I hope. So
Okay.
Mike Loxley for sure.
There you go. Well, there is Steve's update on his exact win-loss predictions for every Big Ten team. And we'll do everything college football this season. We pick every Big Ten, every Mountain West team, and going to have a lot of fun doing it. So make sure you're already subscribed to the channel. Smash the like button on this, and we'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.